Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're listening from. I'm Bill Anderson. You're listening to Expat Radio, and we are coming live from the Costa del Sol. It's a hot one today, folks. Only 29 in the shade, but I have one of these indoor-outdoor things, and it's 47 degrees in the sun today. So as you can imagine, we're sort of sitting indoors sweating at the moment. It's very hard. If you put fans on, they're very noisy, and we're people that don't really like air conditioning very much because it's not very good for you. I want to welcome back Marcel Salazar. Welcome back, Marcel.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me back.
Well, listen, there are so many things that we can do that, maybe apply to one area. We're talking about housing, what's happening in Costa del Sol and things like that. But your topic is really all about health, Marcel. And it doesn't matter
Absolutely.
where you're listening from. It applies to us, doesn't it?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And it's more prevalent now than it has been throughout the history of human race, shall we say? But it was important about 15 years ago, then it became more important about 10 years ago, and now it's just getting more and more and more and more and more and more. And it's a huge topic that you can really talk about for a very long time. I think it's hugely underappreciated.
Right.
And it can be also very much easily dealt with as well. But
Yeah.
there are some things you need to do.
Right. And I asked you to sort of pick the topic that you wanted to kind of focus on today, Marcel.
Yep.
And what you've decided to talk about is
Inflammation.
inflammation. Is that like itises?
Yes, they can be itises. They can be itises. So basically, itises are under the inflammation umbrella.
Right.
So really, inflammation covers a huge number of things, but
Right.
we've known about it for a very long period of time. It's not new. It was discovered way back BC time,
Yeah.
but it's still being understood today.
Right.
And everything way back when it was first discovered, it was discovered to be an important part of human life,
Hmm.
recovery, healing, and so on. We now understand that it's directly connected to immune response.
Right.
And basically, it's an important sign of there are certain indications of it, shall we say. So
Yeah.
if we take it to a really basic level, inflammation is clearly visible with regard to things like heat, redness, swelling, pain, and loss of function. And those key indicators are usually where inflammation is indicated. That's what you are suffering from. Inflammation. That's very, very broad, very, very general, and it could be caused by any number of things. But if you see any one of those reactions,
Right.
then you are inflamed, and the
Okay.
cause could be any number of things that we probably will discuss as well.
Yeah. So I guess. Oh, I'm getting a bit of an echo here. I'm not sure where that's coming from. It's
Ah,
my echo, not your echo.
no, yeah,
um, I guess though that inflammation sort of affects us at various levels, Marcel, doesn't it?
it does.
There might be the sort of thing that you get from an injury.
Absolutely.
That there's the kind of inflammation that you might suffer, well, for example, in the joints,
Correct.
and you do a lot of work with that, don't you?
I do.
And then the other bit is what's happening inside that maybe we can't see very well.
Correct. 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 Exactly. So it's good to think about inflammation in terms of acute and chronic. That may be something that you've heard of before. It's a common terminology, and it's important to understand the difference between the two.
Right.
So acute generally indicates that it's something that's happening right now, or it
Okay.
happened recently. So you've injured yourself, you've banged yourself against something. The tissue is the area can be relatively limited in terms of its damage area, or it could be very major. Obviously, that would be really obvious, but it's more likely to have been a bang on the door or frame or something like that, or a stubbing of a toe, etc.
Right.
And it's fairly prominent. It's fairly obvious where that's happening. Whereas chronic pain takes a number of days, months, even normally, to present itself. It's much more progressive, which means that it can be less clear exactly where it's coming from, and it's more subtle as well. So it can sort of creep onto you. You haven't banged your head on the wall, you haven't stubbed your toe on the floor, things like that. It's something that has affected you over a period of time, and that's a more what we call insidious onset of inflammation.
Right.
And that's one that I really would like to talk into more detail, as and when you're ready,
Sure.
because it's something that a lot of people are suffering from,
Right.
and it's something that we really, really need to be paying much more attention to for our own health and body.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is
Mhm.
that, if I stub my toe, which hurts like hell, by the way,
Yes, it does.
at least you know what's caused it, and unless you've broken something, it's probably going to go away in its own time.
That's right.
But you're really talking about other kinds of inflammation that we don't necessarily know where it comes from, and we don't know if or when it's going to go away.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. So when you injure yourself, your body's response to that injury, such as what's called a contusion injury, so that is where you have banged on into something, your body's reaction is to send you first the nerve response, which is, so that's your body saying, ow, you've done something, that's painful, don't do that again. And then maybe take some weight off that area. So sit down because this hurts. So that's what you do, and then your reaction is normally appropriate to that sort of
Right.
pain reaction,
Sure.
and so therefore you ice it, etc. And we'll talk about a little bit more about icing as well. But it's much more obvious because you've obviously impacted it in some way,
Hmm.
or you've twisted your body in some way that's caused some pain. But it's the slow onset of inflammation that happens through other forms of, dare I say, call it injury,
Right.
that is really, really important for people to be aware of. And I think a lot of people are not aware of how much injury we're causing ourselves in relation to things like psychological stress,
Uh-huh.
nutritional stress,
Hmm.
and chemical stress
Right.
as well. So those are fairly broad subject matters. I can go into more detail with each one if you have a very specific, if you have a question. But those are the ones that play a huge role in the long-term quality of people's lives, because
Right.
it's that has an impact on the inside of the body that we don't see one day to the next,
Right.
but we
Okay.
will see over a period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's an awful lot for us to get into here.
Mm,
But maybe if we could deal with the easier ones first, and then
sure.
we'll talk about this more insidious inflammation. Um, I'm never quite sure if you've got something that hurts, hot or cold.
So if you have something that you've banged onto something,
Right.
let's say you've stubbed your toe, you've banged your knee into something, usually it's ice.
Okay.
Okay. Now, why is that? Okay. So what's going to happen is when you have caused some form of contusion injury, the area is going to flood with fluid, which may be blood, it may be interstitial fluid, all the different types of things happen within the body under the surface of the skin.
Right.
If that area gets flooded, there's nothing wrong with initial acute inflammation. It's a natural bodily response that's going to facilitate the healing process. So it's very important and it's good to do. So applying ice serves the function of facilitating the refreshing of that fluid buildup.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so to simplify it as much as possible, you want that area to flood with fresh blood, which is what it will do all by itself.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want it. Your body has a habit of overcompensating, so then you might get what's called edema, which is where you get the swelling, literal growth under the surface of the
Right.
skin, and it can become excessive. So the point of that is to stop repetition, to stop movement, limit control, and so on. But you don't need to have that to excess. And some
Okay.
people's bodies do that very often. And so applying ice, for example, is a really effective way of helping to control the amount of swelling and refreshing the fluid that's at the area. But it doesn't
Right,
mean you leave ice on there for hours on end. It's a maximum of 15 minutes
right.
or less.
Um, just about a week ago, my wife got a wasp sting, and
Okay.
she said she hasn't had one for a long time, but she's never had a reaction. But
Yeah.
this time, um, things went a bit crazy, and she had a lot of swelling, and she had to take antihistamines, and she was given some cream that I don't think she used because she doesn't like the name of it, the sort of corticosteroids.
Ah, yeah.
But she when her arm started to swell up, she said the only thing that would give her relief from that was
Yep.
cold. So she was
Yeah.
actually wandering around the house wearing the wine cooler on her arm.
Perfect. Genius.
So
Genius.
it's just as well that she's very small and she's got small arms because it fit it
Yes.
right over there.
It's
But,
often the simplest solutions that are the best one. You can buy the most amazing contraptions from the pharmacy, but actually, I always recommend a bag of peas.
right, yeah,
The bag of peas is fantastic because a bag of peas works really, really well on basically encasing the most of the areas. Now that solution that your wife came up with was even better because it actually cups her arm perfectly.
sure, yeah,
So that's exactly what you want. So that's an even better solution than the bag of peas. But and it remains cold and it's designed for her size, and so that was absolutely a brilliant
yeah,
idea. And yes, applying the cold is the best thing because now an inflammatory response in relation to a bee sting is a different inflammatory response from a contusion, but it's
right,
still the response is still fairly similar, in that the body does cause swelling. And obviously, if there is an indication of allergy or even mild, it can blow up excessively. Of course, the
sure,
stronger the sting, the more reaction you're going to have. So you did the right thing, which is obviously antihistamine, which is directly designed to calm down the reactors in your
the
body
body's
that
response, yeah.
respond to the sting bite itself.
Hmm.
And so that helps to control it. And the icing is a very good way because again, you'll get a degree of discomfort simply because of the fact that the arm in this case was puffing up way more than it would normally do, and obviously
Yeah,
that puts a lot of pressure on the blood vessels and the skin and so on, and that becomes very uncomfortable. By design, it's designed to do that. But applying the ice and a little bit of compression as well, and that's another topic, compression, is a very effective way of helping to speed up recovery, provide support, and protect the area from non-repetition of
yeah.
injury.
Is this in your work as a physical therapist? Is this the sort of thing that you see quite regularly, Marcel?
Yes, definitely. And funnily enough, most interestingly, most recently, I've had all ankles. For some reason,
Really?
all ankles have come in the same month. And I had 5 patients, all with ankle injuries or post surgeries. And we've had fantastic results, which are when I was presented with most of my patients, they had limited movement, massive weakness, huge insecurity around the actual area. And when you treat it correctly, you can control the swelling, improve movement, improve strength, which is really important,
Sure.
and then improve coordination. And that's the most important thing. And one of the things I talk about a lot with my clients is the importance of rehabilitation
Hmm.
after injury.
Right.
Because if you get to a point where you feel, okay, I can stand on my leg, so I feel okay, I'm going to carry on with my everyday life.
Right.
And that's usually as far as we tend to get with our care, should we say, with our
Hmm.
self-care. As when we think of ourselves as healing, we think, oh, I can stand on it, okay, I'll go back to my normal life. But it's at that moment that you trip, you catch it, you shunt a door frame, you kick a car, whatever it might be, you
It's
catch it somewhere, and
it,
it's just that moment, that
yeah,
moment when you repeat the same thing or you catch it somewhere, and
yeah.
it's a horrible feeling.
And it's always the bit that hurts that you hit on the door or you
It's
catch it always, isn't it?
exactly. That's the bit
Yeah.
that you just perfectly nail it every time, and it's and there's a very very good physiological reason for that.
Hmm.
And the physiological reason for that, which is fascinating to me, is something called proprioception.
Mm.
And that is where your body loses its connection to the said area.
Right.
So let's say, talk about the ankle. If a person rolls over their ankle, whether they tear, whether they break, whether they strain any of the structures inside the ankle, you're going to have problems until you rebuild the connection between your brain and that joint.
Yeah.
Now, if you have guidance, it happens much faster. If you
Right.
have no guidance, it will happen, but you will probably re-injure it again and again and again. And then what happens is, of course, the integrity of the whole area begins to reduce because
Sure.
your connection to it has been weakened, and you are neglecting the time and the process required for your brain to reconnect with the limb in space and so
Yeah.
on.
I think Dave has just sort of confirmed that football injuries. He said he's torn ankle ligaments on both ankles 3 times.
Wow.
And I guess once you do that is what you say, that the healing process just doesn't go back to 100% each time, does it?
Well, my question to Dave is, what was your post-injury care like?
Right.
because back in the day, let's say 30 years ago, footballers are famous for not particularly listening to their therapist back in the day, much more so now. But back in the day, they were famous. Obviously, your part of your rehab program was a pint of beer and a cigarette. So, that wasn't necessarily the best route to recovery. Now, yes, a pack of ice was a great start, but if that was it, then it makes complete sense that you've re-ruptured your ligaments and so on.
Hmm.
And yes, not to play for 6 to 8 weeks. So yeah, you're answering my questions, which is exactly what I would normally expect to happen when you are given inadequate support,
Hmm.
because it's all left to your devices. You're assumed to know that you're going to know exactly what you should do in order to get back to the elite level or
Right.
whatever level of performance that you were working at. And what you have to tell yourself is, imagine if I'm like a baby and I'm relearning how to do what I was doing. What would I do to relearn what I did before? And if you did that, you
Right.
probably wouldn't re-injure. But nobody does that
Right.
unless you're told to do that.
Another thing I've noticed is, I've said it's very hot today, and a lot of people wander about with flip flops on.
Yeah.
I wear them around the house. I have to say, I wear kind of loose sandals around the house. I
Yeah.
never go out with them though,
No.
because it doesn't take very much for it to flop off. Instead of
No.
flipping on, it flops off, and and then you lose your balance because it catches on something, and
Yep.
it's very easy, isn't it? When you're wearing
Yep.
this kind of footwear outdoors, and pavements are not even, and there's little potholes here and there, and you're not watching where you're
Correct.
going, and I maybe very old fashioned, but I always wear a pair of shoes or something solid on my foot when I go out, just for that reason.
You're definitely not old fashioned. You're bright. Basically, if you if you want to avoid injury, then, well, first of all, if you have injury, you definitely don't want to be wearing flip flops. It might be more comfortable
Yeah.
because of air
Mm.
to your foot, but for any other reason, you would not want to be wearing flip flops. Flip flops are notoriously, and by record, the most dangerous shoe you can wear, aside from a high heel stiletto, because you get into a false sense of security when you try to run, walk faster. If they get even slightly wet, they become slippery. So flip flops really, really are something that should be worn in and around the pool, maybe,
Sure.
in to cover a short distances, but never really to cover huge distances. And I know for comfort, they can be effective,
Right.
but it's not an effective way of protecting your ankles. There's zero support around your ankles, And it does open you up. Now, as you said, one of the major problems in Spain is that uneven pavements are a huge problem.
Sure.
And that is an issue as well. And one of my primary agendas with my patients to try and make sure that when they're healing, that they don't trip,
Right.
because trip rates will go up significantly. So
Right.
the chance of you tripping will increase significantly if you've had an ankle injury,
Sure.
because of what I mentioned before about proprioception. And if you're wearing sandals, it's going to be even higher. So you either do want to trip and it's purely a matter of time, or you wear a good shoe and you're much, much less likely to do that as well. So it's very relevant. Yeah.
Okay, Marcel, we're going to take a short break.
Sure.
Just a drop and opportunity for Dave to put a couple of his adverts on, and then we're going to come back and get into some of the I'm going to say more interesting stuff, but the stuff that's not so perhaps obvious. Over to
Okay.
you, Dave.
You're listening to Expat Radio, your worldwide friend.
Oh, welcome back. You're listening to Expat Radio. I'm Bill Anderson. We're coming live from a very warm Costa del Sol, and my guest who's coming back with us today, Marcel Salazar, and he is talking about
Inflammation.
inflammation. Yeah, not information, inflammation.
Not inflammation. Did I sound like that? Sorry.
No.
Inflammation.
I'm just joking, Marcel. Okay, we've talked about the kind of physical bit, about people twisting their ankles and bumping their toes, and that's the kind of easy bit in some ways, that we know it's going to hurt. We know we're probably going to get some swelling, and
Yes.
we've spoken about how to deal with that. But you raised issues of some other things as well, and
That's
stuff
right.
to do with our psychological makeup, the food that we eat, and something else as well. I can't remember.
Yes.
Can you talk us into this a little bit? Because I think, I have a friend who, when I put this on my Facebook page, she said, this is a show I really need to listen to. And she's based in Portugal. And I'm not sure, but I'm sure she didn't bump her toe. So talk us into some of these other issues.
Okay. So inflammation is a big umbrella topic. And as we've already said from the beginning, it is something that your body does when it is out of balance, should we
Okay.
say. So we know that you need to maintain as much of a balance in life as possible. That is the life goal, shall we say. And when we introduce things that put it out of balance, it creates changes within the body, and the response of the body is very often inflammation. And that
Right.
inflammation can lead to an incredible number of things,
Right.
including degenerative changes within your body, joint degenerative changes.
Right.
It is connected to cancer. It is connected to psychological changes within your behavior.
Okay.
It is connected to your brain function.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, what you need to do is evaluate as much as you can. Do I have a balance, especially in relation to what I'm putting into my body?
Right. Okay.
So nutrition is a huge, huge factor in that, because it will have a massive reaction with your immune response. For example,
Uh-huh.
if you find, let me give you an example. Let's say you're a person who gets ill all the time, somebody who gets colds all the time.
Mm.
That your immediate response or your immediate thought process is, okay, this is clearly my immune system. My immune system is not very strong. It's not reacting appropriately. Why is that? That is usually because something is not being given to your immune system in order to help you to respond to said bugs that are going around all the time.
Sure.
Now, not taking into account any of the things we've got going on in the world right now, which is pretty mad still. There are still colds that exist, even though it's hard to find one. You can still get a cold. You can still get other illnesses, etc., and your body can still fight it by itself if you give it the right framework in order to build an anti-inflammatory response.
Right.
And an anti-inflammatory response is assisted by what you put into your body, what you drink, how much exercise you take, and what you're thinking about as well. And the thinking one is really difficult for people to get their head around.
Okay.
But the other ones are more tangible, so they obviously seem more reliable or more realistic. But the latest science is showing how important our mindset is towards our general well-being as well.
Yeah, well, I worked in the field of psychology in
Right.
the UK, and I have no doubt, and I'm not going to say we're talking about psychosomatic things. I'm going to say that the way our mind is, the amount of adrenaline, the stress responses, the constant flight and fight response that people are sometimes living under, most definitely has a serious impact on their physical well-being.
Correct. And when you connect the fight or flight, or the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems, the connections are undeniable.
Yeah.
And I think, to keep it simple, what that means for listeners is if you are under a lot of stress, however that may be, but particularly work, emotional, environmental stress,
Sure.
then that will have an impact on your body.
Right.
And you may not see the connection, but it's really important to be aware of it. So the connections between, and if this is over a long period of time, we're talking, this is not likely to be stress caused by one person driving a car one day and then suddenly you're at risk.
No.
This is a sustained period of stress, or what's called chronic stress or chronic inflammation as well. They're absolutely connected.
Right.
So the connection between chronic inflammation and renal problems and arthritis and pancreatitis, diabetes is a massive one,
Right.
as well as obviously cancer and cardiovascular conditions as well. So these types of conditions are directly connected to chronic inflammation within your body.
Right. Okay. You're talking about getting balance back, Marcel. Where does a person start with
Yeah.
getting balance back?
First, identification. What is your, for example, if there's a problem, so do you suffer from regular illnesses, like I said before? Do you
Right.
find that are you overweight? Are you very unhappy? Those are very clear indicators of imbalance.
Right.
Now, I'm obviously making it as simplistic as possible. I know life is more complicated than that, but very often it's a case of identification first. So if you are a person who feels unhappy quite a lot of the time, why is that?
Right.
Maybe it's because of environmental stress, emotional stress, family related issues, work stress. Maybe it's the choices of the food that you're eating. And it's amazing how much connection there is between the things you're putting into your body are actually making you feel really sad.
Right.
Initially happy, but in the long term, really sad. And that's because what happens is that when you ingest into your body things that don't work for your body, your body's response is all kinds of messed up.
Right.
All kinds of, your hormones are out of balance, your body weight's out of balance, and adipose tissue, which is fat, displaces all of that. Excess volumes of adipose tissue are extremely dangerous for all manner of different things, including some of the ones I've just listed there before as well.
And do you think, Marcel, that when people are feeling very stressed, and let's just say they go down the route of comfort eating, that's the time that they're most likely to eat all the wrong things?
Correct.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely a connection there. And there's a reason for it as well, because your brain is actually wired that way.
Right.
Your brain wants to satisfy your desire to feel better as quickly as possible.
Okay.
we're also instinctually hardwired to find brightly colored, sweetly tasting things as much as possible. And there's no mystery as to why marketing around children's candies are brightly colored, and they're very attractive, and the
Yes.
boxes look great, and the packaging is appealing, and so on. That's not by mistake. And the same rule applies. Your brain is tricked into thinking, oh, that's very, very nice, or that piece of chocolate is going to make me feel good, but in the long term it's not. And it doesn't mean that chocolate in minority is a bad thing. And actually, chocolate in its purest form, again, is absolutely amazing. Cocoa is an incredibly powerful antioxidant and one of the most nutritious foods in the world, but it's tarnished by the fact that we process it, add sugar and add dairy and so on.
Sure.
So that changes its constitution completely. But there is absolutely a connection. And so making sure that your lifestyle incorporates good nutrition and exercise is the very best way to begin the process of creating balance in your life.
Sure.
Because exercise has a direct connection to the consumption of adipose tissue in the long term. It also releases the good hormones. It also helps to improve the strength of your muscles, the strength of your joints, the strength of your bones, all these things. Now, exercise can be a big, scary word for a lot of people. Sure. But what you really need to understand is that it can start with 20 minutes a day of walking. Like, that's it, 20 minutes a day of walking, and that's all you're going to need, because that's, to begin with, particularly the older you become, it becomes essential. It's not optional, it is essential. But it doesn't mean that you have to stop there. Right. There is the limitations of a person's physicality is based on their perception, not on what a book says or what even sometimes a doctor says. Right. Because doctors will say, oh, yeah, you should be taking it easier now. You're getting older and all this kind of stuff, which I find offensive personally. The older you become, the more physical you should be if you want to be and if you can.
Right.
It's very important for you because your quality of life will be so different if you can do more. Then it will help to protect you to become more and continue to do more.
Yeah.
But if you're told, you're getting to that age now where you should probably sit down more, and it's like, well, why? Is it time for me to leave? What's the situation?
Just sort of lie down and let it slip. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. That's effectively what's being said.
Yeah. So there's possibly there's the stuff that we all know is bad for us, and I mean sugars have to be way up there with the stuff that's bad for us. And
absolutely.
I have read various things that sugars themselves can be a source of inflammation in the body.
Correct. But what they do is that they feed inflammation.
Okay, right.
So, put it in another way, when you are sick, you want to cut out as much sugar as possible.
Okay.
If you are unwell, you definitely want to, because it's the simplest form of energy. They love it. They feed off it. And we feed off it, and so does the bug.
Is this to do with the acidity levels in the body?
I wouldn't necessarily say acidity levels. It's more related to the fact that it's simply a form of nourishment for the body. It's the way your body responds to sugar, and it actually provides fuel for bacteria and sometimes for virus as well.
Yeah.
So sugar is never going to be a suitable fuel in excess. Of course, we survive on sugar. So I mean, you can't avoid sugar altogether.
No.
But it's the form of sugar, and it's the quantity of sugar. And no person in our world, especially in our developed world, needs to worry about a lack of sugar. That's never going to be a problem. Even if you're very, very restricting in your diet, you're not going to have to worry about that, because it is almost anywhere.
Right.
And everywhere. So if you want to control your mood state, your hormone balances, you first need to look at sugar. You then need to look at the obvious ones: alcohol, cigarettes, drugs. Medication plays a huge part in your body's reaction, and it creates, without getting too much into it, medication will create confusion whenever you're trying to identify the cause of a problem,
Right.
because what it's always doing is adjusting your body's automatic response to a given situation.
Okay.
So that's a very big separate topic. But body fat as well is very, very relevant in this regard, because inflammation, as indicated by excess body fat, so obesity, will directly connect as well to all manner of health issues, again relating to what I mentioned before, and long-term health conditions. So if you are a person who is overweight or too heavy for your own comfort, then do something about it. And diabetes is a huge topic. Type 2 diabetes, I think it's really important to say that type 2 diabetes is a self-inflicted disease.
Right.
And that's a tricky one to open up to, but it really, really is. It is 95% of the time a self-inflicted disease.
Right. Okay. That could be a topic for another day, isn't it? Because we're
Yeah.
moving into something very big there. In the whole food thing in general, I think when you were on before, Marcel, I kind of mentioned this. When we go out shopping, Vicky always takes her reading glasses with her. And if there's anything that we see that we haven't perhaps bought before, the reading glasses go on and she starts to look at labels.
Very good. Get good at it. Get good
Yeah.
at it, because they're very good at hiding things from you.
Well, this is what I want to say. Even people who think that, you know, they're not eating out in well-known chains of burger bars every day, and that they're not eating sort of boil in the bag stuff, you know. Even people who think that, you know, yeah, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to prepare it at home and whatever. But we are being, I don't know, conned in some ways, aren't we, about some of the additives in food. Does that affect inflammation in the body?
Absolutely, 110%. And there is no 110%. It's 100%, but it's 110% because it's worrying. There are two factors to this that are now becoming increasingly important, which is, one, we know, most people know, that processed food, so a pre-prepared meal that you can find in a box, is not going to be your most nutritious meal of the day. That's
Right.
guaranteed.
Sure.
It might taste good, it might feel good in the mouth, etc., but it's not going to be your most nutritious meal. I think most people now acknowledge that. The scary thing is that even the raw products that we're now buying in mass production, which is things like the fruits and the vegetables that we get access to from the counter in the supermarkets,
Sure.
they're not what they used to be.
Well, they're not. They don't even taste the way they used to.
They don't. And that's correct. And that's one of the biggest problems. I don't know if any of your listeners know or anything, but let me ask you this question. How many is your recommended amount for fruits and vegetables?
Oh, is it 7 pieces a day?
Minimum. It's between 7 and 13 pieces per day, as recommended by the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
But I would guarantee that 80% of people still think that it's 5 a day.
Right. Okay.
And that's hugely inadequate. Why have they made that change? They've made that change because the nutritional value of the food we now have access to has significantly reduced because of soil depletion.
Right. Well, you see,
that's a really scary
we're
subject.
very lucky here. We live on a small finca, and Vicky has been picking kilos of figs from our trees this last few days. And she very often makes them up in a smoothie with some strawberries and various other things. We've got a lot of fruit trees here. And I have to say, we don't use any kind of chemicals on the land here.
Very good.
And you know, when we pick an orange off the tree, usually later on in the year, around November, December, you know what? It tastes like an orange.
Yes, it does. Incredible. When you can find that, or if you have that, it is your insurance policy.
Right.
It is your policy for long, better life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well.
it should be something that people think of it like that. I mean, I as I mentioned, I think before, I work with a supplement company that basically creates a whole food product that is specifically to cater for that need.
Right.
It recognized many years ago that the quality of food from a whole food source,
Mm-hmm.
so we're talking about fruits and vegetables and berries, those have been diminishing for a long time. So the product that I've been working with for the last 6 years now, specifically only uses products that are coming from farms that don't use any heavy pesticides and don't have soil pollution, or as much as little as they can. It's
As
difficult
far
to
as
control.
possible, sure.
And that is extremely important. And it's always best to get it from the real product. Of course it is, but you can absolutely facilitate it if you find the best available way to get it into your bloodstream. And that's why I've been working with this product. I won't mention the company name, but if you're interested or if you want to learn,
Sure.
ask the question or get in touch. But it is absolutely fantastic, and it continues to be a verified way of getting the nutrients from a whole mix, the rainbow color, which is what we talk about, the rainbow color of fruits, vegetables, and berries, from over 30 different ones,
right,
into a way that gets into your bloodstream. And it works. It's proven to work. And that will have a knock-on effect over the long period of time for me, it's my insurance policy.
And,
like you living on a finca and eating your own produce, which is brilliant. Mine is that.
But if you have good quality supplements, actually, more of these minerals and whatever are actually absorbed into the body than we would actually get just from taking the original food product. Isn't that right?
Now, that raises a very good question. And I've been interested in that over the last 5 years, particularly since working with this organization. And it's true and it's not true.
Okay.
So it's true in the sense that the delivery format, which is that maybe of a capsule, is very quick and very fast to be delivered into your body. But your body can't easily be fooled.
Okay.
So what that means is that whatever is in that capsule, if it's been tampered with, if it's GMO, if it's highly pesticided and so on, then your body will absorb only a certain amount anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It will always recognize if it's synthesized. Now, this is where we come into things like synthesized supplements, vitamins, minerals,
Right,
things like that,
okay.
that are created in a lab and then they're compacted together and all this kind of stuff. Your body recognizes them for the low quality that they are, and you end up passing them out very, very easily, and they get filtered, which is what your body's designed to do. It's to filter out toxic and waste products as much as possible.
Stuff that shouldn't be there.
And only get what it needs. And low quality supplements, that's exactly what will happen.
Right.
The difficulty is finding out what is low grade quality supplements. That's up to the individual to get familiar with, exactly as you've said, reading labels, looking into the source product, finding out where's this coming from. If it's coming from China, well, not everything coming out of China is bad, but not everything coming out of China is good.
Right.
So, it's more, you can buy cheaply from China. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You can buy cheaply.
But you get what you pay for at the end of the day.
But you get what you pay for. Correct. That's very often the case. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Marcel, we're going to just take a very quick drop just now, okay? And then we're going to come back and pick up on this topic again.
Absolutely.
You're listening to Expat Radio, your worldwide friend.
Welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson. We're coming live from the Costa del Sol with my guest today, Marcel Salazar. And we've been talking about, what was it?
One more time, inflammation.
Marcel, I've probably diverted you from your task once or twice here with my questions.
No, I love it.
We've got a few minutes left. Where would you like to take us in talking about this whole topic of inflammation in the body?
Oh, it's such a huge topic. It really is. And I think probably the most important one is for people to ask the question of themselves, which is, do I have balance in my body in that, can I live without medications?
Right.
Do I do regular exercise? Do I feel comfortable in my own body? And am I happy?
Right.
Now, those are some pretty big questions. I mean, I can't say that all of those things are perfect in me, but it's an ongoing journey.
Sure.
And I think if you yourself recognize that there is a huge imbalance in one of those, so there is something like your relationship with food. And now I will be honest here about what most of my clients tell me, which is when I ask the question, what's your nutrition like?
Mm.
They always respond, yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, they're obviously eating enough to keep alive. Yeah.
Yes, clearly that is exactly what I think the answer to the question is in their mind. Their mind is, well, I eat, I'm alive, so it must be
It
pretty
must be
good.
okay. Yeah.
But that's not my question, and maybe I should rephrase it.
Yeah.
My question, obviously, is to define it, which is what I would always try to do as well, is do you eat more fruits and vegetables than meat?
Mm.
Are you comfortable in your body, as in do your clothes fit you comfortably? Do you find that getting up and out of bed is not that much of a struggle in the morning? It is a struggle for most people, obviously, but
Yes.
if getting out of bed is like the hardest part of your day, then it might be an indication that you need to make some form of adjustments, whether to your body weight, whether to your strength, whether to your abdominals, whether it's to your glutes and your thighs and so on. Then it might be time to make an adjustment. It might be time to make some changes and incorporate something that makes your quality of life better. So more exercise, more fruits and vegetables. Because here's what fruits and vegetables do: when you eat a variety of them and you prepare them appropriately, steaming is one of the best ways, by the way. When you prepare them appropriately, they work synergistically. And
Right.
synergy is really important. It's such a huge topic. It's something that is so important because, again, balance and synergy. I'm swinging around the same topics here. Fruits and vegetables will always work well within your body because 1 + 1 with relation to fruits and vegetables is not 2, it's 3.
Right.
So multiple things happen in your body from micronutrient ingestion when you have lots of different fruits and vegetables in your nutrition. So it plays a huge part in the quality of the nutrients within your body, the way your body processes your body fats and your energies and so on, your body's ability to recover as well. And that recovery, again, is a topic in relation to whether you've been unwell, physical exercise, and how quickly you can do more. And then obviously how your body responds to stress, which
Right.
connects to inflammation. Because if you have excess body fat, for example, your body's inflammation level is going to be very, very high. So
Right.
that means your potential for illness is going to be very high. Your potential for long-term degenerative changes is going to be very high. Cardiovascular issues, again, proneness to diabetes. And diabetes is obviously a relationship between you and sugar. And if you have diabetes, it means that type 2, it means that your relationship with sugar has been very bad, but it can be adjusted.
Right.
And it's diabetes is a huge problem, and it hasn't gone anywhere despite what's going on in the world right now, where the only thing happening is one thing.
Yes.
It hasn't gone anywhere, so it still exists, and still people are suffering from it, and people are still dying from it. But it can be controlled, and if we put a little bit more emphasis on encouraging people to look after what they do physically and what they eat constantly, that will change millions of people's lives for a very long time. And it just comes around to talking about this subject regularly and highlighting it and encouraging it of people as much as possible and supporting one another, in order to encourage even, I mean, it's a tough, tricky one, right? But if you live with somebody who
Sure.
has diabetes, it's very easy to sort of pacify and say, oh no, you've got this, let's just live like that and we'll take the medication forever. Or you could say, right, let's make some drastic lifestyle changes. Let's change what we eat, let's change how we exercise or move, and let's see what that does. And your
Right.
doctor may or may not like you for it. They should like you for it, but doesn't always happen. Depends on the doctor.
Yeah.
Doctor should be advising that already, but I've come across many a time when that's not the case. So, you know, those types of things and the connection between inflammation and your body's response to inflammation will be significantly improved. And it is very interesting that one of the most effective nutritional diets is the Mediterranean diet.
Sure. Yeah.
Based on research, based on information, based on long-term studies, etc., etc. What I love about that is that doesn't mean that the Mediterranean diet is a specific diet that you pick up from a book and you say, right, well, this is this, that, and the other, etc. No, it is quite simply lots of fruits and veg, quite a lot of fish, more fish generally than red meats, and lots of fresh produce.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's really all it is.
Marcel, our time has gone.
Wow.
If people want to get in touch with you, can you give us your website or the way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So my website is strongforlife.me. So strongforlife.me, which is very straightforward. You can find me on Facebook. So if you go to facebook.com/strongforlife.me, you'll find me there. You can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on the telephone as well. And all my information is available there, but I'm based in La Cala de Mijas, and I'm also based in Calahonda at the moment as well.
Marcel, thank you so much. I've found this very interesting.
Great.
And I'm very happy that you're going to join me in a month's time. And
Absolutely.
We'll pick up another topic. Thank you so
certainly
much.
will.
Happy birthday to your little daughter this week.
Thank you so much.
Her first birthday, yeah?
It was her first birthday on Tuesday, yes.
Oh, well, I hope you had a lovely day altogether.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think she had a lot of fun. She did a cake smash, so that was quite something. Thank you so much for having me again.
Take care, Marcel. And we're going to just go out with a nice song from Nina Simone.
Oh, excellent.
Take care now. Thank you.
And how you know how I feel.